Hello and welcome to World Talks. My name is Sasha Farbach. As the war in Ukraine grinds on, Europe faces a stark reality. The fate of its security is intertwined with Ukraine's struggle. In the face of relentless Russian aggression, the question looms large. How much is Europe willing to invest in safeguarding its future? But despite mounting challenges, many are still asking, are we doing enough? And with Germany's foreign minister recently visiting Kiev and a renewed focus on military aid, the call for Europe to step up has never been more pressing. And the question now is, will Europe act decisively or react too slowly? Joining us now in the studio to help us navigate these critical crossroads and questions is Andreas Umland, analyst, Swedish Institute of International Affairs. Thank you so much for coming and good to see you.
Thanks for having me again.
So a different pronged attack here on my questioning. First of all, let's start with the recent visit of Mr. Vadapul, Germany's foreign minister, to Kiev. This is significant. This is, I think, one of his first journeys. It comes at a critical time. Also, we have some of the most drone strikes in the last month, hitting well over 5,000 that Russia is pummeling Ukraine with. What is Germany's role in this? Because, they've been a little bit doubtful on the Taurus missiles. Can we see more now? How do you assess the foreign minister's visit?
I think that's an important visit indeed, and we have a new tone now coming out from Berlin. The major change happened already in 2022, but that was first rhetorical, and it then only very slowly transformed into material help. And now the conversation has, fortunately, too late, I would say, but better late than never, changed in Berlin. And we have now new ideas also from Berlin, like investing in the Ukrainian military-industrial complex. We have now this idea that Germany would even take air defense systems out of its own current air defense system and give it to Ukraine, thereby weakening itself, but strengthening Ukraine. These are sort of ideas that 3 years ago would have been unimaginable. And now, fortunately, it is happening. It's basically following the example of other countries, of Poland, the Baltic countries, also the Scandinavian countries who have been more forward-leaning already much earlier.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned also that Germany might actually be considering moving some of its own air defenses. That would be a big shift. I think, given what I've just mentioned earlier as well, with all these terrible drone strikes, and Russia now has the capacity, really, and those aren't just the Shahed drones, right? Those are also then followed by barrages of ballistic missiles and so forth. So that's increasing. Is this sort of the moment now Germany will do more faster? The Americans are still involved, but Germany really is that large giant that is now slowly turning, the Zeitenwende of the sea change. Can we see more now coming in the next few months, or even sooner maybe?
I would hope so. I think the current leadership, at least from the side of the right-centrist parties in the government, the CDU, CSU, seems to understand that. The Social Democrats are more difficult, but they have also, I would say, good people in the government, like the Defense Minister Boris Pistorius. And now we are seeing this new sort of thinking where Ukrainian security and Ukrainian defense is actually perceived as defense of Germany and of defense of in the national interest of Germany, and not any longer in some sort of not just following European ideas or international law or something like larger ideas, but more narrowly national interest followed, and that is slowly taking shape. I would hope that this then also translates into more direct engagement, for instance, with creating a no-fly zone, something like that, that would actually then transform or translate, let's say, put it that way, the NATO's military power into really something that helps protecting also Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. And also interesting, if we look at the sea change, as we call it, the Zeitenwende, you're saying that it's happening now. But just quickly, I want to jump on the SPD because Boris Pistorius very much, some call him really more of a hawk in the party. But at the same time, what do you think of, let's say, that policy in Germany? Is that now in one direction? Is the SPD now with the CDU, CSU? Are they really on the topic of defending Europe? Is it closer now than it was some months ago?
Yes, it's closer now. I wouldn't say it's close enough yet, because we have still these strange documents coming out of the SPD. There was a manifest recently by the pacifist wing published, which was sort of still from this, I would say, security la-la land, where people believe that somehow you can protect yourself from an aggressor by being peaceful and sort of talking to the aggressor. So this is still there, but we have now, at least in the government, we have more realistically thinking people like Boris Pistorius and Lars Klingbeil. I think the way that Pistorius can be like he is that he is by far the most popular politician in Germany, and that gives him the sort of the power or the resource to withstand this larger social democratic trend, especially in the apparatus of the Social Democratic Party. I think the electorate is actually more enlightened.
Okay. Also, with Ukraine, I want to get your views on Zelensky and the Ottawa Convention. I mean, this is something with anti-personnel mines, Ukraine now stepping out of that. How do you assess this? I mean, this is something, how is it going to impact the war? Ukraine's standing, how significant is this?
I mean, that's very natural. And I was actually, when I read this, I wasn't aware that Ukraine had not yet left this convention before. We had a similar discussion with loitering ammunition already 3 years ago. Ukraine is fighting for its survival, and these weapons are stigmatized and forbidden because they are supposed not to be used in wars of aggression, but Ukraine is defending itself. It's defending itself from an expansionist and genocidal war, which is extraordinary in the post-1945 world. And so I think that there's no way around that.
Mm-hmm. And also, in terms of making Ukraine prepared, I mean, as the security of Ukraine is Europe's security. We've heard this many times. Recent article as well by former leaders, former President of Poland, Kwasniewski, and Carl Bildt, also from Sweden, suggesting in a paper that Europe needs to allocate around 0.6% of its GDP. That's around 110, 120 billion annually, so to Ukraine's defense. So given that and the recent NATO summit, the 5% that NATO countries need to now spend, how realistic is this and how quickly is this going to be really pushed forward? We talk about these numbers. Now we have to realize them. We've appeased Trump at this point in time. So bringing all this really to bear, how long is that going to take and what's your measuring of it?
It's difficult to say because I think many people still see this this war between Russia and Ukraine as a regional conflict, as something in Eastern Europe, in sort of inner Slavic confrontation. And they don't understand that this is something that has the outcome of this war has direct results for European security. So, for instance, the most Russian city outside Russia is not Sevastopol. It's on the territory of NATO. It's the city of Narva in eastern Estonia. So if Russia wins in Ukraine, then the direction of this aggressiveness, of Russian aggressiveness, will be not only towards NATO, but also towards NATO countries. And then we are in World War III. So if people understand that this is actually an investment in our own security, I think then it shouldn't be a problem. Because we had these large financial commitments in earlier times when there was the financial crisis in Greece or when there was the COVID crisis. We had billions and billions spent to take care of these crises because people understood that's about us. And once people, not only in Central Eastern Europe, in Poland and in the Baltic countries and in Scandinavia understand that this is about us, then I think it shouldn't be a problem to commit to this sum.
I mean, a lot of commitment of this is, I think, also when you really are faced with this with reality, you have the emotions of this. I mean, I'm curious about all that moment. I remember at the Hague summit at the presser of President Trump, where a Ukrainian journalist asked the president directly, what about air defense? What about Patriot missiles? That's what Zelensky has been asking for. He's willing to buy them. Trump has said, well, we'll see if we can make some available. How realistic is this? I mean, give us your take on this. Will these now come to Ukraine? They've given all the attacks recently in his pledge there.
Well, the Americans are further away. For them, it's not so much a war for their own security. But even there, I would think that the U.S. needs NATO. I think the NATO increases the power of the U.S. It also increases the security of the U.S. And if this war is lost by Ukraine, and if then Russia attacks a NATO country, and if then NATO is sort of undermined, and also the whole logic of the non-proliferation regime regime for nuclear weapons is undermined, this will also concern the US security national interests. But I think that is a more difficult line of thought. I think they still think that this is, you know, a European matter, and the whole problem, in a way they are right, is that Europe has not taken care of it itself. And there's a certain truth to it. But on the other hand, the Americans also have their own stake in the outcome of this war.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but also in terms of capacity, I mean, we talk a lot about scaling up, ramping up, pushing out more. I mean, air defense, I mean, that's something also that the European Union has talked about more. Key partners in the European Union as well, Poland, if we look also at France, Germany. So in terms of air defense, you know, where can this come from? Are there Patriot batteries still left to share with Ukraine? Why are we still holding this up? Where's the political will here?
Yeah, I guess the conflict here is between the national defense that the countries have, and you can understand them, and that they are scared, and then there is the need of Ukraine. I think the Central East European countries, they have in fact demonstrated by their own very generous support of Ukraine how the thinking should be, is that if you think of a country like Estonia, you know, if you look then at the numbers of how much financial support they have in terms of their GDP given to Ukraine and how many weapons they have given to Ukraine, they understand that their own security is defended in Ukraine. If we come to this, and Vadepur's hint was sort of going in this direction, that I guess he is now thinking that if we give our own air defense to Ukraine, we are actually defending our own, indirectly at least, our own territory. And then I think there should be more available. I guess, you know, there are many armies in Europe that can actually take from their current arsenal. And of course we have to support our own military-industrial complexes, and especially the Ukrainian.
Yeah, exactly. So as very much as that paper has said, and many politicians have said, the security of Ukraine is Europe's security. Look, Andreas Umland, thank you so much for coming by. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching. That concludes World Talks, but stay tuned, much more coming up right here on TVP World. Goodbye.